Please, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Please. Please. No, 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 no. Please, please, help me! What is more creepy? Is it something like this?
Alright, I know you're confused right now. I can explain everything, but you gotta trust me, okay? Listen, you're in terrible, terrible danger.
Or is it something like this? I play a lot of horror game. After all, I'm a fan of horror game and lately they have been on my mind. I was thinking, if I were to do a horror game, what would I do to scare the player? How would I scare the player, more exactly? I decided to analyze some game of the genre to understand it more. Now, this video isn't about how I would make my horror game. I just analyze the thing horror game do, their purpose, and say some advice from my experience or thing that I found out about. If this video end up helping someone creating a good horror game or a good horror thing in general, perfect. Also, whatever I say in this video, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not a horror expert, alright? So, remember the 2 scare in the beginning of the video? Let's go back. We'll try to see the point of what those 2 scare do. The jump scare. One utilizes the subtle of the scare. It'll build up, and when it reaches its climax, it does a scare that will surprise you to achieve the jump scare effect. In the moment of the jump scare, you're filled with an intense fear that lasts a few seconds. Now sure, this is an easy, almost like a free card to scare someone, though some can fail to do a jump scare without the right setting. Example, if I were to talk like this about stuff in general and now some people would find that scary, it depends, but most of you wouldn't get scared. It just came out of nowhere and you didn't have time to process it, or you didn't care. Now sure, the jump scare is easy to do, but it's also appreciated because sometimes the build up without a punchline can feel dry. See? Now, using jumpscare can be annoying if used too often. It can also be annoying if the jumpscare amount to nothing. If like a monster pop in and try to kill you. You run away but suddenly it catch you and you think, well fuck, I'm dead. But the monster fade away and it turned out it was an illusion. It just sucks. Like, wow, I worn myself out for nothing. It also cut down all the stress the player accumulated. Now, losing the stress you accumulated isn't a bad thing. So, like, if you want to give the player a rest and you're worried that you're putting too much pressure on him and that will cause him to drop the game, you can do that. But some players, the jump scare will actually break them and make them stop playing the game. In general, I feel like the jump scare, what is more creepy isn't the jump scare itself, but the anticipation that bring the player to the jump scare. Now, the other one is harder to do. The best way I can describe it for now is that it built up tension silently. It built it up and tried to scare you quietly. There's not much sound. You see a shadow passing by, or a silhouette hard to distinguish. Some kind of a dark, creepy monster that is distorting himself as you hear the sound of cracking bone. Even though you're not sure it has even bone, it just stand there, waiting for you to do something. You can hear its breath behind you. Almost feel it. Or maybe it's just a cold. You know, if you look at it, something will happen. The bone cracking stop. The shadows stop moving. It freezes. Maybe it's over. It just stopped breathing, or maybe it will go away. Please go away. This will not make the player afraid as much as a jump scare, but it will help unsettle the player. It's some sort of way of having him hyped up his sense, making him noticing every sound and visual thing you put to scare him. Then you can keep going until you break him. Now of course, if you just do those scare, it will make the player know he shouldn't expect any big like jump scare to pop out of nowhere. And you know, that might end up backfiring, turning some scare less creepy and more obnoxious in the long game. Now, as you can see, if you use too much jump scare, you will just annoy the player. But if you use too much of the subtle scare, you'll just end up making it lose its effect and just be not important. The evident answer would be to balance it out. Make the player jump scare at first, so that he get in the mood real quick, and you need to do it right. After that, do a subtle scare so that the tension on the player build up. Now, some may want to calm the player by making a jump scare to reboot the tension back and forth with the subtle jump scare and jump scare. But if it was me, I would keep the pressure and even add more and more so that the player is stressed out and filled with dread until he break and he himself pause the game and he himself take a break from the game, and that will end up hurt his ego and make him want to come back in the end. But that's how I would go about it. Never take the control away from the player, or keep it to a minimum. It's something the player notices when there's a cutscene or an event that moves the camera away. Whatever may happen, it doesn't matter that there's a monster running after them or not. If it becomes a cutscene, it loses potential of ever scaring them. If you are walking around and then a cutscene pop where the monster starts chasing you and the main character run away, and now it's a safe sequence and back to the gameplay. Sure, it is creepy, but you lose the advantage of the surprise. Surprise is a big factor in horror game. If you were walking in a video game and there's a certain enemy in this game that you just can't defeat them like they're immortal, and then boom, it appears, everyone will lose their shit for a second, and some may freeze, but not the monster. So you run away and boom, it's a chase sequence that is used to its advantage in building a more intense moment. The idea is making the player feel like he's losing control of this situation when he never had control, compared to just taking control over the player. I will use an example of Shadow of Colossus to show my point. And it's not a creepy game, but it has elements that are worthy of a horror game. It displays a perfect example of what I was talking about. I will just assume you know Shadow of Colossus, and if not, I'll keep it short. Basically, you fight Colossus, and you should play it. Spoiler ahead. There's a part in the game where you have to fight a Colossus that hide under sand, like a snake type, if you don't wanna. Anyway, you don't see it, and you don't know how to kill him, so you figure along as you try stuff out. And then, yay! You figure it out. Suddenly, you see its face in full glory. As you're looking at him and pointing an arrow in his eyes, it hits you how big he is, and his eyes turn red. It sent chill down your spine. It may not cause the same thing to other player that it happened to me, but there's plenty of moments where it could happen in this game. Now, Shadow of Colossus has also a bad example of taking the gameplay away from the player that end up being a missed opportunity. If you notice, every time you go to a Colossus, the camera shifts away to show where it is before you fight it. That's fine. You need to know where you're going, where the Colossus is before you fight them or see them. What I don't agree with is when they take it away when the monster truly appear. Let's take an example. They show you where you have to go at first, and then when you arrive to the location, there's a cutscene that show the monster like he's on the ground, and then there's a cutscene you can play and the monster is getting up, and after that it's back to gameplay. It would have been better if it didn't cut into a cutscene and stay in control of the player, so that when you arrived, the player like he see the Colossus on the ground and he starts standing up slowly, and as you see him slowly getting bigger and bigger in size while he's getting ready to fight, you realize how big he is. Like, holy shit, he's a fat mama jumba. Of course, sound is the key to horror game. Good sound design will get you pretty far. The idea is choosing between music and ambient sound. At times, it will be complicated and will depend on what you want to do. You can use your sound like Dead Space if you want to. You use ambient sound when you're walking around and scavenging stuff. Then use sound cue for the jump scare. And music for fight. You can also use music for other stuff like a safe place in your game, such as Resident Evil or Evil Within. Now you could play a scary music at a time when there isn't a fight or something scary happening, like in Dead Space. But I wouldn't recommend that, or not too often, because it will make the player notice the music, and that will make the player realize that the music or the sound you're playing is the cause of creeping him out, and the cause and effect will change into the subconscious, telling him it's just a game, and we don't want that. He needs to never be cut out of it to still be in the game. He needs to suffer, to be hurt, just like we are. And it would just make him be like, huh, that's just the OST playing. Well, whatever. Now, if you're making a creepy visual type novel thing, play music while nothing happens in this case will work, because the music will be what creeps out the player when there is a total shift in it with the visual. Sometimes though, silence is enough. No need for nothing else. Now, disgusting thing can be used to be creepy and traumatizing. Seeing someone getting cut open is disgusting, but if you go too far, sometimes it can be not creepy and just downright gross. Example, seeing someone getting their dick cut off is traumatizing and borderline gross, but it's efficient. Now, seeing someone force-fed their shit in a tube as they are being cut open by a fucking chainsaw is fucking disgusting and ridiculous. I kinda wanna see that though. In a movie or a game, not in real life. For God's sake, I shouldn't have paused mid-sentence. The enemy design. Always aim for the nightmare-ish thing, like something that disgusts you, creeps you out, or, well, preferably scared you. You hate spider? Put spider in your game and make sure it will fuck you up. Mentally, that is. Now, you could aim for something normal like a guy with a hood and it's fine. I don't find it satisfying. Like having an enemy, creepy enemies having their own trademark. When people see it, it will make them think about your game instantly. You can just do whatever you feel like. Maybe go evil within style and use object to freak you out. Or just like Silent Hill, grotesque version of human. You're just using really creepy monster. Or whatever. Something that when the enemy see you like, ah, fuck. Now sadly, this hasn't really been great in horror games. Sure, there's some kind of replayability to those games, such as New Gun or Skin or Fun OP thing, but it doesn't help in the horror section of horror game, you know? I would suggest adding new scare in a second playthrough. Now, it may seem a lot, but we could just make some jump scare not happen, add some cue at places there were not before, and have one new different enemy to surprise the player. The surprise is like one of the most important thing in a horror game. And not having any in a horror game it's like it's not creepy anymore. Scenery. That'd be a castle, school, asylum, or a police station. Use something interesting, something that won't bore someone visually, that isn't always staying like the same color and like stale gray, like it will bore the player at a long time. Now, you could take for a horror game a creepy place that exists in real life, but if I were to do it, I would take place that people love and turn that against them. That'd be an amusement park, theater, arcade, or a house, making them afraid of something they never really notice, and something they wouldn't mind about. Like, toilet bowl. Trust me, when they will feel paranoid, they will have a little hard time taking a shit. Now, I would do a summary, but it bored me to repeat myself. Like, holy shit, I think I have talked enough. So to end the video in a good note, I will do something special. The first thing my father taught me about anything horror related was in a movie. He used the movie called Asylum, a movie about, I don't know, it's Leonardo DiCaprio stuck in an island. And yeah, it's crazy, whatever. So back then I told him how afraid I was when I saw a horror movie. I was just a kid, you know, so it's understandable. My father, he took his remote, muted the sound, and told me to look at the movie. Do you find this still scary? The truth is, horror lies in the sound. The music, the sound effect, those little things change everything to a horror movie. Now, sure, horror has more depth into it than just sound. There's camera angle and lighting and blah blah blah. But he made me understood horror movie a little bit more, and that made me less afraid of them. I'm still a pussy in horror movie. It's weird because in game I'm like a badass, but in movie I can't appear and I fucking run by it. Alright guys, I think that's everything. I might talk about a horror game later on. Anyway, until we see each other again, have a good day.